is a matter of choices, and every choice you make makes you. What a striking quote. Since the day we are born, at every stage of life, childhood, teenage, adulthood, we find ourselves having to make different choices through this journey called life. Such decisions may be more day to day, or at times more significant.
Who has given us this awareness and freedom of choice? Is this privilege of choice given to all the living creatures of this planet? It seems not. It is only the human race who has been given the intellect to choose what is right from wrong, distinguish between the real and the unreal, and differentiate the permanent from the impermanent.
The blessing, because of which man is considered superior to other species, is his divine faculty of wisdom and the ability to make conscious choices.
Through this unique freedom of choice, we can enrich our lives and make it more beautiful. Choice is such a powerful tool at the disposal of human beings. Merely choosing and deciding to be happy, no matter what the circumstance, can enhance the quality and experience of our lives.
So, what are the guiding principles that govern our choices? How do we decide when presented with two or more options? How do we make the right choices? Or can we avoid making a choice altogether? Ultimately, what helps us to make good decisions?
Welcome to yet another episode of Soul Vibes, a platform to connect with audiences from across the globe. I am Jitendra from Singapore and I am joined by Manisha Ji from Hong Kong. Sant Nirankari Ji. Manisha Ji, what comes to your mind when you hear the word choice?
Sant Nirankari Ji. Well, I feel it's a powerful word and it impacts the quality of our day-to-day life experiences. You know, this morning, I had to make a choice whether to drink tea or coffee, and I chose the latter. Such a simple choice, and yet I felt so satisfied.
Wow, that is certainly a good start to the day. This morning, I woke up and before getting out of the bed, I made a choice to thank God for my senses, my body, that I could breathe freely, and simply for being alive. This has made such a difference and enhanced how my day has unfolded.
That's so true, Jitendra Ji. You have approached your day with an attitude of gratitude. And this positivity is contagious and does seem to have a ripple effect, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That was just a simple choice. Manisha Ji, how do you approach more difficult choices in life?
Timely that you should ask this. You'd be surprised that just last week, I got job offers from 2 different schools, each with its own benefits. I took some time to reflect and went within and searched for the answers to determine which one to pursue.
You went within? That's so profound and intriguing. I think that's the key to unlocking the power of choices in our lives. I fondly remember Her Holiness Satguru Mata Sudikhsha Ji recently mentioning, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." Thus, when we are filled with Almighty Nirankar, we experience bliss and are guided to make the right choices.
It's so true. The past is history, the future is a mystery, and the present is indeed a present. So living in the present with Nirankar is ultimately what matters. However, Jitu Ji, I feel we barely scratch the surface when it comes to understanding how to make the right choices.
I definitely agree. But that's the very reason why we have a panel of experts among us to enlighten us on the role that having positive vision, heightened awareness, a strong value system, and a spiritual inclination play when making choices on a daily basis. Speaking of positive vision, let's hear from Vinesh Ji, an IT professional from Japan, elaborate more on this point. Vinesh Ji, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jitendra Ji and Manisha Ji. I recall Her Holiness Satguru Mata Sudikhsha Ji recently referenced a sandalwood tree emitting its fragrance despite being surrounded by snakes. The one with a positive outlook will choose the scent over the serpent. I would like to share a personal experience where I was admitted to the emergency ward due to a sports injury. When I regained consciousness, I realized I was provided a single room with plenty of space. I got that satisfaction knowing that because I work for an MNC, I could enjoy such perks. Towards the sixth day of my treatment, I was informed by the doctor that since my COVID tests were continuously negative, I would now need to be shifted to a general ward, where I would be sharing the facility with two other patients. Immediately, questions ran through my mind. Why are they shifting my room when I was comfortable and had the liberty to talk to my friends and family over the phone without any restrictions? On the reflection, both were not my choices, yet one made me happy and the other sad. So, to resolve this internal conflict, I started to read the mission's publications. While doing so, a quote of a famous poet shared by Baba Hardev Singh Ji Maharaj took my attention. काम में खुश हूँ, आराम में खुश हूँ, पनीर नहीं तो दाल में खुश हूँ. While recollecting these thoughts in my mind, I was shifted to my new room. As I listened to discourses online, I got the reinforcement that I must stay content, as God has always chosen the best for me, far beyond my expectations. Then why exactly was I questioning what was happening and creating confusion in my mind? Because I had forgotten that God is the ultimate creator and He knows what's best for us. Pondering on this, my thoughts began to evolve and I started to embrace the new room, which also offered an iconic view of Tokyo Tower. That very night, I slept peacefully as I changed my vision and chose to accept the situation. With the positivity to move forward, my surroundings changed, and I'm delighted to share that with the blessings of Her Holiness, I'm back to playing my matches and tournaments once again. I realized that one should accept God's choice and change their vision of life.
It is so encouraging to see how you turned a seemingly negative situation into a positive one, Vineshji. During the pandemic, initially, I also felt plenty of anxiety due to the unpredictable circumstances. However, I then decided to use the extra time available to focus on yoga and enhance my baking skills.
Now that we have understood the importance of having positive vision in life while making choices, let's find out how being self-aware could help us remain optimistic from Sister Neetu Ji, a professional in the education field, joining us from Indonesia.
A very warm welcome to you, Neetu Ji. Could you please shed some light on how you approach the abundant options available?
Sant Nirankari Ji, thank you Manisha Ji. If we observe, we are in touch with the world, but have we lost touch with our own self? Let us try to understand which level of awareness this is. It is evident that thousands of thoughts pass our mind every day, and out of that, most of them at times are either negative or irrelevant. Imagine if we were to take the time to write down all the thoughts that go through our mind, we could even write a book. But would it be a book that we would like anyone else to read? Probably not. So now that we have this realization, let us take a pause and dive deep into it. When we get up in the morning, we say, I slept well. How do we know we slept well? We were sleeping, right? Yet, there is something which never sleeps. That consciousness is awareness, which triggers our memory. Of course, when we are awake, we are mindful of what's going around in the world through our senses, mind, and intellect. Likewise, we should strive to introspect and see how they influence our choices in life. Let's take an example. How do we pose when there is a camera in front of us? Obviously, we try to look our best and never forget to smile, right? At that moment, we have the cognizance to take a pause and smile. In the same way, with awareness, we will not let any negative thoughts take shelter in our minds. Even if they do enter, they won't stay long, as we Being more alert will shoo them away.
Neetuji, the camera analogy is so relatable. As a spiritual leader once said, as the sun on rising makes the world active, so does self-awareness affect changes in the mind. Could you cite a practical example where self-awareness proved helpful, Neetuji?
The big change I see in myself after being self-aware and supported by God realization is that earlier when I used to teach my students, I had the feeling I was the doer. But now I know that it's not me. I'm just the facilitator and the instrument to God's will. Previously, when interacting with people, particularly at my workplace, if someone did or said something that negatively impacted me, I would feel bad for a little while. However, now, due to self-analysis of my thoughts and connection with the Almighty, I'm able to forgive and let go. I'm sure constant practice will make this an effortless habit.
Thank you so much, Neetuji. It has given me an insight that being self-aware, complemented with God's realization, enables us to detach ourselves from the results of our choices. Speaking of results, Manisha ji, have you ever struggled with the outcomes of your choice? So after having made a decision which felt right at the time, you regretted or second-guessed later?
Of course. It is natural for humans to err and look back. Many times, I have reflected on whether I had done the right thing and on whether my decisions aligned with my values. Would the result have been different if I had chosen the alternate path? But then, I take solace in knowing that the Lord is so merciful and forgiving. Even if we did take a so-called wrong decision, life may still give us second chances to rectify our mistakes. We can then take a U-turn and have an opportunity to start afresh.
Indeed, forgiveness is such a beautiful virtue that liberates us by releasing the burdens of the past. I recall Baba Hardev Singh Ji once saying, कुछ इस तरह मैंने अपनी ज़िंदगी को आसान कर लिया, किसी से माफ़ी मांग ली, किसी को माफ़ कर दिया. Instead of holding on to grudges, we should learn to let go and let God. We are now joined by Muskan Ji, a university student based in the Philippines, who will be enlightening us through her poem on how we can eliminate the unnecessary burdens that we carry within ourselves if we choose to forgive, build bridges and spread love, just as Her Holiness Satguru Mata Sudikhsha Ji continues to do so.
Each time I came across someone who was slightly different from me, who looked a little different they would speak, I ended up succumbing to the perceptions that I had formed, furthering the very distances that had already divided us all. I also resorted to reprimanding the very people that I had cherished. I took burdens on my shoulders and allowed myself to perish. I held on to my grudges. In problems forgiveness could solve, my ego seemed more important. Around it, my world revolved. It was then that the Master Perfect shone her light of grace on me. The all-pervading essence, in an instant, was right before me. My judgments all arose by just perceiving the shell. We were all in fact the essence. Upon this I was to dwell. Just as she embraced the sinner that I was, in spite of unending faults, she never asked the cause. She chose to ignore, to forgive, and to unite, instead of creating differences, instead of causing plight. The onus was now on me, on what I chose to do. Will I be building bridges, or erecting walls will I pursue? If I desire eternal bliss, at every moment I wish to rejoice. The path is pretty simple. Follow the Master's voice. The path is pretty simple. Follow the Master's voice.
So beautifully put, Miss Kanji. That poem really struck a chord. It is so profound, yet so simple. Recently, Her Holiness also mentioned something right along these lines. Our choice determines what to learn and what to leave. Satguru further reinforces the need for spiritual elevation when making a choice. And if that choice supports truth, wisdom, happiness, and love, it is the right choice. Jituji, I find that I get this spiritual enrichment through the company of the wise, selfless service, and God remembrance to remain connected with Nirankar.
Likewise, Manisha ji. Why don't we hear from Sudikhsha ji, an expert in the medical field based out of Thailand, on how her regular involvement in the company of the wise, in selfless service, and in mindful contemplation has strengthened her value system and has allowed her to build bridges with the people around her.
Great idea, Jituji. Over to you, Sudiksha ji.
Sant Nirankari Ji, Manisha ji. Thank you so much for having me. To answer this question, I would like to share an incident that happened with me a few years ago. I was in my bedroom, preparing to sleep, when I heard these really loud screams coming from the balcony. So I ran towards the balcony to check the source of this noise. Upon reaching, I figured the screams were coming from a neighbor's apartment. At this point, my instinct told me that something was not right. So I rushed over to my neighbor's apartment to check if everything was okay. Upon entering the apartment, I saw the husband lying unconscious on the floor, while the wife stood frozen there in a state of shock. I told her to call the ambulance, while I tried to perform CPR on the husband. Unfortunately, her husband could not be saved due to a severe cardiac arrest. Moreover, to put this in context, prior to the demise of her husband, we barely interacted with each other, as she seemed to be a very shy and reserved individual. Also, it was around 2 days after this incident that my neighbor figured in a car accident for which she needed to be hospitalized. Being in a foreign country, she didn't have many relatives around. Here is when I was presented with a choice. This time, it was not an instinctive one, but one of consideration. I had a choice to either help her and her family during this tough ordeal, or simply not get involved and carry on with my life. Since I've gone through tough times myself, I empathized with my neighbor's situation and made the choice to help her out. After days, I finally saw a smile on her face. She was touched by the generosity and kindness. This gesture of hers reaffirmed my belief in making the right choice, and in return, I gained a friend as well.
Absolutely remarkable, Sudiksha ji. But wouldn't your own engagements have been impacted by taking such a decision?
I knew I would need to sacrifice my own time in return. But the easy choice of walking away would not align with the values that had been ingrained in me, thanks to the teachings of the Nirankari Mission. So what may seem like a calculated decision on the surface was instead my inner voice, shaped by the learnings that I had acquired through the mission and my conscience that made me react in the way I did. Our values shape us to make the right choices over the easy ones. Once an individual consistently makes the right choices, it becomes a habit, and one will no longer look at those choices as sacrifice, but rather as selfless service. You know, Jitendra ji, in our daily lives, we have to make choices. The key here is to make the right choice over the easy one. As the saying goes, values are like fingerprints. Nobody's the same, but you leave them all over everything you do.
That was so inspirational, Sudiksha ji. And it was your value system that led you to help someone in need, all this while making the choice without looking for any reward or self-gratification. This clearly echoes the sentiments of our Master, to work for a cause and not for an applause. In this way, we have come to understand that our choices spontaneously reflect the values that have been ingrained in us. However, these values can only be instilled into our subconscious by constantly connecting with the source of all these divine virtues, Nirankar. Now, let's strengthen our connection with the formless and tune into a melodious song by Sunilji and friends from Malaysia.
I close my eyes, see you again. In the darkest hours of my night, I think of you again. And it's you, oh my Lord, taking me through every single day, showing me the guiding light. All I need to do is hear what you say, my Nirankar. Through my night, through my day, I see your rays, and I feel your caring touch in my heart that always stays. And it's you, oh my Lord, shining on me every single breath, walking by my side all the time, leading me through thick and thin every day, my Nirankar. My Nirankar. My Nirankar. How could we be two different souls away, when I'm a part of you, within you, in every way? All my life I've lived in warmth from the love you gave and only gave, like an endless ocean long, surrounding me with every loving wave, my Nirankar. I close my eyes, see you again. In the brightest hours of my day, I think of you again. Oh, we call you the formless one, for love is the only form that you take. And to be with you, my Lord, love is the only form we need to take, my Nirankar. My Nirankar, my Nirankar, my Nirankar, my Nirankar, my Nirankar.
Wow, what a mesmerizing song! Keeping God closer to us is the best choice that we can make. We are never alone, and when we choose to walk with this higher power, we strengthen our faith and we are able to make choices free of any fear.
Yes, it's so reassuring to think I don't need to worry about the consequences that arise from my choices when there's a lighthouse to guide me, my Nirankar. When we place our faith in God's will and His plans, we can move forward reassuringly. Jituji, today's podcast leaves me with so many things to reflect on and implement in my day-to-day life. One thing that I've learned is that happiness is essentially a choice. If I approach situations with awareness, positive vision, a spiritual inclination, and values, I believe I will be led to make the right choice. And the beauty is, the choice lies within my control, right?
Absolutely, Manisha ji. Choices are definitely within our control. However, we also need to be mindful that we are free to choose our actions, but we are not free to choose the consequences of these actions. When we make choices and perform actions in the full awareness of this Almighty Nirankar, each choice will then be righteous and according to His will. So, connecting to God is the key to make the right choices. As Baba Hardev Singh Ji once shared, मैंने चाहा जीवन में सुख हो 2 गुना, 4 गुना, 100 गुना, इसलिए दुनिया के बदले तुमको चुना. Manisha ji, before we wrap up, I would like to leave our dear listeners with a question to ponder upon. Have you harnessed the power within you by connecting with Nirankar to make better choices?
While you reflect on that thought-provoking question, it is time for us to bid farewell. Thank you for tuning into this month's episode of Soul Vibes. The Soul Vibes team will be back again on the last Friday of August with new subjects to discuss, with new insights to share, and with new learnings to take. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did, and that you always rejoice in your choice.